Okay, here's just an example. I know my desk is a little unorganized, but we've collected so many things in the last little while. Here's blueberry leaves that I've collected. You know, when we're picking blueberries, it's easy to collect the leaves, so I have blueberry leaves for tea. I have all kinds of stuff in little bags. I've put it away, you know, and this is just only a sample. You know, other stuff, you know, I collect, like for example, I collect the acorns in jars, so that, you know, biblically taught, it says I'll feed them wormwood and the water of gall. So if somebody has an intestinal problem, worms, parasites, I get them to eat some wormwood, and then I grind up the acorns or oak bark because it has the tannic acid, and we make this as a tea, and they'll drink that tea on a regular basis while they're eating and consuming the wormwood, and basically the parasites and infection come out of their blood, out of their bowels, out of their tissues. It just comes out. And you know, we've learned all kinds of things like this, not only through experience but through research.
You said oak bark. Yesterday you were showing poplar as the...
yeah, well, you see there, poplar can be used as that. The balm of Gilead, poplar, is good for expelling of worms and parasites out of the body. But then there's, you know, there's many parasites, so they all have little different things, right? So you need to have more than one remedy. Sometimes everybody is different,
so
unique.
Oak you can use also?
Yes, oak you can use as well.
What
but you
part
got
of the oak?
You can use the bark, the leaves, the branches, and the actual acorns.
But you said oak is not edible.
It's not. The acorn inside, if you broke it open and took the nut out and soaked the tannic acid out of it, just soaking them in water, then let them dry, grinding the acorn into a powder, you can eat it as flour, cooked flour.
And that'll expel the worms?
No, that's a food source then.
Okay.
And when you have it with the tannic acid makes your gut lining expand and tighten up to prevent parasites from passing through. The one reason the black bear never gets cancer is because he eats maybe 50 kilograms of this in the fall before he hibernates. And because he hibernates all winter and he has this inside of his stomach digesting in his intestinal tract, while he's absorbing fat, the tannic acid basically tans something. It preserves it, right? So if you take a deer hide, a moose hide, the skin, and you want to tan it, when you boil oak bark in water, you make tannic acid. The brown acid tans the thing. So the same thing is what the tannic acid from oak acorns does, the same thing to your gut lining. It heals it up, seals it up, so that parasites and infection don't pass through your weak intestinal tract into your bloodstream. So that's what the tannic acid does. So when you consume acorns that have been soaked, you're still getting some tannic acid, but not to the same degree when you got the shell and the full acorn.
So you grind up the whole shell?
Grind it up. I stick it in a mortar and pestle like this, 2 or 3 of them, and I pound it to powder.
So this is a mortar pestle for those of you who don't know what it is.
Yeah, well, you can buy them in stone, but I like these little steel ones. It took me a long time to find these. They're about $20 a piece, and it's just the best one I've ever found. It does small quantities for yourself, and you know, it's just really good if you want to do stuff for yourself, and it's just excellent. And you can't ever wear it out. I mean, trust me.
So this is your little lab here.
Yeah, and I have my own little scale, you know, little scale when I want to weigh stuff out. You know, because if I'm making tea for someone, I spent, like for example, I spent time to find hemp tea bags. I have them in the drawer down there. Hemp tea bags. I bought them by the thousands so that, you know, when someone needs something put together for their health, you know, I'll take the wintergreen leaves, for example. You know, I talked about wintergreen, a plant from northern Ontario that never dies. See, the leaf is shiny on the top, reddish green color. Some of them are bright green like this. You know, and when they're growing in the environment, they're really bright. And this never dies, even underneath the snow. And Marcus, you smell the jar. Smell the jar. Take the time to smell the jar.
That smells awesome.
That smells awesome, and that's a year old. So it just goes to show you how powerful some of these plants are. My grandmother taught me as a child that this plant was for giving body strength. Making tea from this, eating the leaves. When I'm out in northern Ontario walking through the bush and haven't eaten something...
Show us the leaves again, so you can hold it steady so people can see what it looks like.
Yeah, here's a few leaves. I'll put them on my hand. And, you know, there's what they look like. Let me turn this one over here. So you get all the different colors, right? Okay, I'll turn them over. Okay, so my grandmother taught me, you know, that eating a few of these leaves when you're walking through the bush, they give you an overall feeling of wellness. You feel good eating them, and they give your body some amazing strength. Like you feel good. So like I like to take this, even dried, and chew them. They have a kind of a mint flavor, a dull mint flavor, not bright and sharp.
Or you can make tea out of it.
Or you can make tea of them, but I like to eat them fresh when I'm in the bush, or even dried. I love to eat them. I like to collect, you know, from sassafras trees like cinnamon bark. And this grows in North America too. People take cinnamon as just a plant from somewhere else, but it does grow in North America.
So you're using sassafras as a source of cinnamon?
Yeah, it is. It's the same tree. It's even documented.
So that's where cinnamon comes from?
Yes. This is goldenrod. The weed that grows along, everybody thinks it gives you hay fever. It's not. Ragweed gives you the hay fever thing. Goldenrod, when the flowers are yellow and you dry them out, they turn a little brown color like this. And this is the cure. So you make tea from this, and it just gets rid of the hay fever problem.
So if you have allergies...
If you have, personally, if you have allergies, I think everybody should consume bee pollen. Starts with
local bee pollen.
Local bee pollen to your area, because the bees in your area are going to be in your environment, and they're taking the pollen from your area, and they're digesting it and making it into little balls, and they're putting the right enzymes together so that you have the immunity for your area. So start in the winter time, taking a small amount of bee pollen, you know, put it in your mouth, a little bit underneath your tongue. If you have some allergic reactions to bees or stuff like that, start with a small amount, because the small amount, you know, if your tongue starts to swell and you can't take any of it, 1 grain at a time, eventually your body will build up an immune system, get to recognize it as food, and you start with a tiny bit, tiny little bit, a little bit of honey, a little bit of propolis, all the hive complete, tiny bit of royal jelly, and you build your immune system up slowly so that, you know, you're not making a reaction. And once you start to consume a little bit of bee pollen on a regular basis, you'll start to notice that you don't have the same reactions to allergies and to food and to all kinds of things. Like, you know, I always hear people telling me that they are allergic, they can't eat this or they can't eat that, they can't have this, they can't have that. The food is not the problem. It's what they're spraying on the food, what they're growing the food with, that's being made into the food. If you look at some of the things Monsanto is doing, for example, Monsanto is putting Roundup Ready, the herbicide, right into the seed, so that when it puts, a farmer buys seed where are Roundup Ready seeds from Monsanto, and they put them on a field, only that seed will grow. That seed will grow, and it has the herbicide right in the seed. So do you think that the seed that turns into a plant doesn't have that herbicide in it? It has Roundup Ready throughout the whole crop in small little molecules. So when you consume something in your mouth, and sorry if I'm chewing there trying to swallow that leaf, but when you consume something, your tongue has 5,000 neurotransmitters called taste buds, and your saliva gets activated. It talks to your brain, tells your brain what you're eating, if it's fat, sugar, salty, sweet, protein, what enzymes. It tells you all this information. Your tongue's telling your brain. As you start to swallow this food, your brain already talked to your stomach, to your liver, to your pancreas, the main key parts of your digestive system, and it starts telling your liver how much bile to create so that when the food leaves your stomach, how it's going to emulsify the fats. It tells your pancreas what type of digestive enzymes to start creating so that when that food leaves your stomach, when it goes into your small intestine, what enzymes you're going to need to help break it down so that you can actually use that food. It tells your stomach how strong to make the acid, whether it's a protein, it has to be a very high acidic to a 1 or 2 pH, or if it's more alkalinic. It balances out your stomach, what type of acid to produce. And people need to understand that this is basic how your body works, but also what you have to realize, anything that is not from the natural 12 elements of the earth, which we need to eat, what happens is your body will not recognize it as food. So your liver will take those products out of your intestinal tract, bind them up into your fat cells, and layer them on your body for future disposal. And they're poisons. Now you get sick and you get tired and weakened down. The quickest place your body can resume energy from is from your fat cells. We're born with a certain number of fat cells and we can never lose one. Your body says you have 399 fat cells. You can have liposuction, cut it off, grind it off. You can do anything you want. But your body's going to have 399 fat cells because your body's going to make whatever's missing to have those fat cells. The problem with digestive systems is we're eating too much sugar that's processed and your body turns it into fat. So when you don't eat enough proper fat from the environment in seeds, nuts, plants, whatever you're consuming, you don't get the right type of fat. What happens is your liver starts to produce bad cholesterol and produce all that extra fat because it doesn't have enough good fat to keep you alive. So what it does is produce all the bad fat and then makes good fat from the bad fat, which is a really dirty fuel, very toxic to the body, and makes you work really hard. And you're always tired and sluggish. I'm eating tons of oil every day, seeds and nuts. Look how skinny I am. I mean, I used to be a 240-pound guy when I was 38 years old. Got sick. Now I'm 160 pounds average. I never fluctuate more than 2 pounds in 14 years. Up or down, no matter how much food I consume. Marcus saw me, you saw me eating yesterday when we were at my farm. I ate a lot of salad, lots of oils, seeds, nuts. We had a yogurt at the end of the day, you know, before we left with blueberries, a lot of fat in it. But look how skinny I am. When I got here last night, I had a handful of almonds and hazelnuts, you know, and with some yogurt and more blueberries. I'm eating a lot of fat. Weston A. Price proved it outright. People around the world that were healthy in those communities with proper teeth and everything else were eating 80% fat, 20% protein, fruits and vegetables by season. And this is something that most people are ignoring. And to me, if you want to be really healthy and feel the way I feel, you have to be eating a variety of food. The birds, the plants, the animals, all eat by season, continuously rotating their diet. It's changing continuously. It's never the same. And that's something I've strived to do. And it's really not that hard once you start to learn how much availability is outside. Okay, here you can see last weekend we went and picked blueberries up in northern Ontario. These are wild blueberries. And you can see the color and how fresh they still look. And one of the things that I do is when I'm picking them, I pick the sweet fern tea along with it. And sweet fern has been well documented, and I proved it out, that the sweet fern helps preserve blueberries, and I guess probably would preserve other types of berries too. Keeps them from spoiling. So even after, it's got to be close to 9 days now, these blueberries look and will taste just as if I picked them only a few days ago. You can see just a simple way we do certain things for drying, like when we pick the sweet fern from northern Ontario and we just tie it up in branches and little bunches with a string. And these are just you know, clothes hangers that people have tossed out into the garbage. We've collected them, and the good ones we fixed them or whatever necessary, and we just lay the plant out. Just let it hang. And it dries by itself. And this is basil, sweet basil, and this is the sweet fern. They look similar but totally different plants. And we just let it dry.
So what are some of the things you do with these dried plants?
Well, the basil I will powder up and grind and use them to add to food, in every type of food, whether it's cooked or raw. And I use that all the time. I just continuously harvest this plant because of its essential oils, its good properties. It just makes the food taste better, and I feel better when I'm eating it. And the sweet fern I use as a tea about 4 or 5 days a week at the minimum. I drink that in the morning with my breakfast or after breakfast. And I use this tea because it stopped me from bleeding, passing blood, and being sick all the time. It started to heal my stomach lining and my intestinal tract really well, cleaned me out. And when you make a cup of this tea, it tastes good, and it has like a oil film inside. It looks like your car dripped a drop of oil inside the water, you know, and you look in your driveway and you got this purplish oil slick. Well, you see that kind of purplish oil slick on the cup of this tea. And this tea just heals your body. It's the medicinal oils. When we eat plants, it's the medicinal oils that we need, the oils that feed our brain, help us continue to make the red blood cells round. The outside layer is fat. And all these medicinal plants, that's their purpose, is to heal us one cell at a time. And this tea, if you have problems with your gums or your teeth, a lot of dirt built up on your teeth, when you start drinking this tea, it might stain your teeth a little bit brown, but all the junk kind of falls off. When I first started drinking it, I kept complaining to my wife, who's a hygienist. She's not practicing anymore. I used to say, you know, I got all these holes forming up, and she'd look in my mouth and say, it's just junk coming off, and yes, your teeth are cleaning up. So I've learned its value, and I sell this sometimes to people who need it, and I use it as a nutritionist, helping people who have different problems. It's a wood branch fern, and when it grows in the wild, it propagates from seed and everything else. And I noticed the nuthatches that migrate from South America to northern Ontario, the nuthatches eat the little seeds, which are a nut. It grows in a little ball on the thing. There's 3 or 4 nuts inside there. They're a little soft, and they're high in essential fats. And these birds have to fly from northern Ontario all the way to South America, and they make that journey. Before they leave, they eat all kinds of these seeds from the sweet fern, and it gives them enough energy to fly south back home to the warm country until they can come back next summer to eat some more. So the birds aren't stupid. They know that this is an important food resource, and I've learned from nature and everything else. Before I did any research on this plant, I was using the tea just from my nose, like picking up a piece of it and smelling it. I love the smell, and I decided when I was sick that I should try drinking this as tea. And you know, I consume some of it even if it's dry or green, but mostly I make tea from it. And when you're drinking a cup of tea, the leaves are loose in there. Sometimes you swallow one or chew one with it.
You could also just powder it up and drink it in water or something.
You probably could, but I find to release the essential oils you need hot water. And the oils float up in the water, and it's easier to absorb the oils into the cells through a liquid form. Because you'll notice if you eat some of the leaves from this, it kind of dries out your mouth, pretty dry. So aloe vera, I think, is a very good plant for you to have. I started out with one that I bought for $5, and you can see we have them everywhere in little pots. Sometimes when my mother-in-law has a garage sale, my daughter sells them for the extra ones for $1 a piece, and she's quite the entrepreneur. Quite regularly I take a piece off of a stem and just chew its stem and all. If you go to the Caribbean, they call this the slimy part. When they cut it open, they call it the heart of God. When we were outside, I was talking about how I collect mustard seeds and the different types of broccoli and kale and cabbage, and I let them dry in a bowl till they're nice and dry. Pretty soon I'll plant these. I usually plant them in August, so that as the snow is coming out of the ground, I'll have fresh vegetables growing up. And it's very easy to do. I mean, this much here, a couple of tablespoons of seeds, well, you'd have an army of plants. I mean, you could fill an acre of land with this.
How long does dried stuff last?
Dried stuff will easily last 2 years if it's properly dried. Slow dried, no dehydrator, out of the sun in shade at a reasonable temperature, and normal humidity, not extremes in one way or the other. And you sometimes on the window screen, or you saw on my stand, you got to go and touch it and feel it, and that sweet fern is almost ready to put away, and so is the spice. It's getting dry to the point where you touch it and it feels a little crackly. So, you know, I will take, and you can see by the color, it's still a dark green. So if you were leaving it dry there for such a long period of time that it's turning brown and yellow, you've lost your nutrients. You have no chlorophyll left. So when you put it back into a water solution, whether you cook it or eat it raw in a salad and there's some liquid, you're not going to absorb any chlorophyll because it's gone. It's evaporated out of the plant. So I don't want to do that. So I pay attention to my stuff and I dry it properly. And then I didn't instantly learn all of this stuff. I started experimenting slowly, reading through some books, looking on the internet, talking to people who've done it, and asking a lot of questions. And then I did experiments on my own to find out the best way it would work for me. And now, supposedly, I'm becoming an expert at this because I got people coming to me all the time and asking, well, how are you doing this? And I show them and they say, well, wow, I never thought of that. Well, I just kept trying and trying and trying until I kind of made the best mousetrap, you know.